The first warning was sewn in silver thread. Isabella Moore found it 3 hours before the engagement announcement, hidden beneath the left sleeve of a wedding gown worth more than everything she had earned in the past 10 years. Outside the costume room, an orchestra rehearsed beneath the crystal chandeliers of Teatro San Celeste. Violins climbed toward a dramatic final note. Cellos answered from the darkness. Beyond the thick velvet curtains, Sicily's wealthiest families were arriving beneath a cold November rain, stepping from black cars, while photographers gathered beneath the opera house's marble arches. Inside, Isabella stood alone with a needle between her fingers and danger spread across her work table. At first, she had assumed the stitches were decorative. The gown had been designed in Milan for Bianca Viscari, daughter of one of Sicily's most powerful men and future bride of Matteo Bellini. The fabric was ivory silk. The train was 12 feet long. Thousands of tiny pearls had been sewn by hand along the neckline. But someone had opened the lining after the gown arrived. Someone had stitched symbols where no guest would ever see them. 3 circles, a broken crown, 7 narrow lines crossing beneath the bodice, and a black knot directly beneath the heart. Isabella leaned closer. She had seen markings like these before. Not on clothing, on the opera house's original evacuation plans. Her pulse changed. The costume room suddenly felt too quiet despite the music vibrating through the walls. She reached for the folded architectural drawings kept in a lower cabinet, documents used by the wardrobe staff whenever a production required moving costumes through the theater's oldest corridors. She spread one plan beside the gown. The 7 narrow lines matched the 7 service passages beneath the eastern wing. The 3 circles marked the rehearsal hall, the royal box, and the old stage lift. The broken crown indicated a private balcony once used by Sicilian nobility. The black knot sat exactly where the central passage narrowed beneath the stage, a place with only one entrance, and no visible exit. Isabella's eyes moved to a final line of silver stitching near the waist. She turned the fabric toward the lamp. 23:15. Siblas 15 p.m. The exact time Matteo Bellini was scheduled to stand alone on the stage and formally accept Bianca Viscari as his future wife. The orchestra stopped. The sudden silence struck harder than the music. Isabella stared at the gown while rain whispered against the high windows. Someone had embroidered an assassination plan into the bride's dress. A knock sounded behind her. She spun around. Bianca Viscari stood in the doorway wearing a white silk robe, her dark hair pinned elegantly above a face that had appeared on the covers of European magazines since she was 18. 2 assistants waited behind her. Bianca's gaze dropped to the open lining. For one brief second, fear crossed her expression. Then it vanished. "What are you doing?" Isabella straightened. "The gown has been altered. I can see that. There are symbols inside the lining." Bianca entered and closed the door behind her assistants. The movement was quiet, deliberate. "Repair it," she said. Isabella held her gaze. "They form a map." Bianca's face remained composed, but one hand tightened around the edge of her robe. "A map of what?" "The tunnels beneath the theater." Bianca looked toward the costume room's only window. "Miss Viscari, someone marked the exact place and time Matteo Bellini will be alone tonight." "You misunderstand." "No." Isabella's voice stayed calm, though her heart had begun striking hard against her ribs. "I understand enough to know he may be in danger." Bianca crossed the room until only the work table separated them. "You are a seamstress." "Yes. You mend fabric. You adjust hems. You make women like me appear perfect under unforgiving light." Isabella's jaw tightened. Bianca's eyes moved slowly over her full figure. The black dress fitted around Isabella's waist, the measuring tape resting across her shoulders. "You do not interpret family matters. If someone is planning to kill him, it stopped being a private family matter." Bianca smiled without warmth. "You believe Matteo Bellini needs protection from you?" "I believe he deserves a warning." "You believe he will listen?" Isabella looked back at the silver thread. "I intend to find out." Bianca's smile disappeared. She reached across the table and seized Isabella's wrist. The grip was harder than Isabella expected. "You will close the lining. You will finish the gown. Then you will remain backstage where you belong." Isabella looked down at Bianca's fingers. "Let go of me." A stillness entered the room. Very few people spoke to Bianca Viscari that way. Perhaps no employee ever had. Bianca released her slowly. "You have no idea whose world you are touching. Then perhaps someone should stop stitching murder into wedding dresses." The door opened before Bianca could answer. A man in a black suit stood outside. He was not one of the theater guards. Isabella knew that before she saw the silver Bellini crest at his cuff. "Signorina Viscari," he said, "your father is asking for you." Bianca's expression changed instantly. Her anger vanished beneath polished elegance. She turned toward the door, then paused beside Isabella. "Complete your work," she whispered, "or tonight will become the last night you ever step inside this theater." She left. The Bellini guard looked at Isabella. His gaze lingered on her frightened face, then shifted toward the open gown. He said nothing, but when he followed Bianca into the corridor, his hand moved beneath his jacket. Isabella waited until their footsteps disappeared. Then she took the smallest pair of scissors from her work table and cut away the section of lining containing the symbols. She folded it once, twice, then slipped it into the hidden pocket beneath her skirt. At 10:47 p.m., the curtain rose. Teatro San Celeste had survived wars, earthquakes, royal scandals, and 3 separate attempts to burn it to the ground. Its interior glowed with thousands of candles and electric lights reflected through chandeliers the size of carriages. Gold balconies climbed toward a ceiling painted with angels. Red velvet curtains framed the stage. Every seat was filled. Politicians sat beside businessmen. Noble families occupied private boxes above judges, bankers, and men whose names never appeared in newspapers even though ministers answered their telephone calls. The Bellini family occupied the left side of the royal box. The Vescari family sat on the right, and at the center, separated from everyone by empty space, sat Matteo Bellini. Isabella had seen him before. Everyone in Sicily had. His face appeared in photographs beside prime ministers, shipping magnates, and foreign royalty. Newspapers described him as an investor. Prosecutors called him a person of interest. Men lowered their voices when speaking his name, but photographs had failed to capture the stillness around him. Matteo did not look restless like other powerful men. He did not check who watched him. He did not lean toward anyone for approval. He sat perfectly still in a black tuxedo, one hand resting against the arm of his chair, while the entire room adjusted itself around his silence. At 37, Matteo Bellini controlled ports, luxury hotels, construction companies, and enough private security to close half of Palermo within minutes. Rumor said he had ended a war between 2 families without raising his voice. Rumor also said 3 men disappeared after threatening his younger sister. Isabella watched from behind the curtain. He looked cold. Not cruel exactly. Cruelty needed emotion. Matteo looked like a man who had trained himself to survive without any. At his side sat Lucia Bellini, his younger sister, elegant in a dark blue gown. She appeared pale beneath the stage lights. Her gaze kept moving toward the curtain, as though waiting for someone. Isabella thought of the silver stitches. She had tried twice to reach Matteo. The first time, a Bellini guard stopped her outside the royal corridor. The second time, the theater director himself had seized her arm and ordered her back to wardrobe. Now the performance had begun. A soprano walked beneath the spotlight and sang an aria about a woman promised to a king while loving a man sentenced to die. The audience listened in reverent silence. Isabella barely heard a word. She counted the minutes. 10:55分, 11:02分, 11:07分. Behind the curtain, stagehands prepared the platform for the announcement. A gold table was rolled into position. 2 glasses of champagne waited beside a formal marriage agreement. At 11:09, Bianca appeared backstage in the completed gown. She looked magnificent. Isabella hated that she could still feel pride in the craftsmanship. The gown hugged Bianca's slender frame before opening into waves of silk. Pearls shimmered beneath the lights. The repaired lining concealed every sign that someone had ever opened it. Bianca stopped beside Isabella. "You made the correct decision." Isabella said nothing. Bianca leaned closer. "After tonight, perhaps I will allow you to continue working here." The stage manager lifted his hand. The soprano completed her final note. Applause filled the theater. The curtain descended. Stagehands moved rapidly through the shadows. Isabella looked toward the old clock above the wings. 11:12分. 3 minutes. Matteo left the royal box and entered the backstage corridor surrounded by 6 guards. Vittorio Vescari walked beside him, silver-haired and smiling, one hand resting warmly on Matteo's shoulder as though they were already family. Bianca stepped forward. Photographers were permitted into the front rows. The curtain began to rise again. Isabella moved. She crossed behind a painted column and stepped directly into Matteo's path. Every Bellini guard reacted at once. A hand seized her arm. Another man moved between her and Matteo, but Matteo stopped. His eyes found hers. They were darker than she expected. Not black. A deep, unreadable brown. "Who are you?" he asked. His voice was quiet. The guard tightened his hold on Isabella. "She works in wardrobe, signor." "I asked her," Isabella held Matteo's gaze despite the pressure around her arm. My name is Isabella Moore. Why are you blocking my path, Isabella Moore? There's something hidden inside the bride's gown. Bianca appeared behind Matteo. Her face went white. Vittorio's smile remained in place. Matteo did not look away from Isabella. What is hidden? A map of the tunnels beneath the theater. It marks the central passage below the stage. Vittorio laughed softly. Matteo, this woman is confused. The markings include a time, Isabella continued. 11:15. A muscle moved once in Matteo's jaw. The clock above them clicked forward. 11:14. Matteo lifted his hand. The guard released Isabella immediately. Show me. She reached beneath the side of her skirt and removed the folded section of lining. Bianca moved forward. She damaged my dress. Matteo unfolded the fabric. The backstage corridor became perfectly still. His eyes passed over the symbols once. Then again, he looked toward Lucia. She stood near the royal entrance, staring at the fabric with unmistakable fear. Lucia, Matteo said. His sister's lips parted. The theater director appeared beside Vittorio. The curtain is rising. Indeed, gold light was spreading across the stage. The audience applauded as the master of ceremonies walked toward the center. Matteo folded the fabric and placed it inside his jacket. Cancel the announcement. Vittorio's smile finally changed. That would create an unfortunate impression. Then allow them to be impressed. Bianca caught Matteo's arm. You cannot humiliate me because a seamstress invented a fantasy. Matteo looked down at her hand until she released him. I have not accused you of anything. You were about to announce our marriage. I was about to sign an agreement. In front of every important family in Sicily. And now I am not. Bianca's cheeks flushed. The master of ceremonies turned toward the wings, waiting. Whispers began spreading through the audience. Vittorio stepped closer to Matteo. We should discuss this privately. We will. After the announcement. No. The single word carried no anger. It did not need any. Vittorio's men shifted in the corridor. Bellini guards answered by moving closer. Between them stood Isabella, still holding her breath. Bianca looked at her. The humiliation in her eyes sharpened into fury. This is because of her? Matteo glanced toward Isabella. For one suspended moment, his face gave nothing away. Then he looked at the stage. Bring her with us. Bianca laughed in disbelief. Vittorio's expression hardened. Matteo. But Matteo was already moving. He stepped through the curtains. The audience rose in anticipation. Bianca followed him because she had no choice. Vittorio came after her. Lucia remained near the wings, pale and motionless. A guard gestured for Isabella to walk. She stared at him. Onto the stage? Signor Bellini said to bring you. I'm wearing pins. The guard looked almost confused. Isabella pulled the pin cushion from her wrist, placed it on a crate, and walked beneath the lights. The entire opera house saw her. She had spent 9 years working inside Teatro San Celeste, without once standing at the center of its stage during a public performance. She knew every hidden seam in every curtain, every trapdoor beneath the floor, every place where the lights exposed imperfections. Now hundreds of faces turned toward her. Her black work dress was simple. A measuring tape still rested around her neck. A silver thimble remained on one finger. The whispers began immediately. Who is she? Why is she there? What is happening? Bianca reached the center first and turned to face the audience with a smile that trembled around its edges. The master of ceremonies offered Matteo the marriage agreement. Matteo did not take it. Instead, he looked back at Isabella. She stood near the curtain, uncertain whether to move closer. Vittorio leaned toward him. Do not make an enemy of me over an employee. Matteo's gaze stayed on Isabella. She risked something to reach me. She risked her position. No, Matteo said. Look at her face. Vittorio's eyes moved toward Isabella. She believed she was risking her life. The orchestra sat frozen below the stage. Matteo walked away from the gold table. Each step echoed through the theater. He passed Bianca, past Vittorio, past the contract that was supposed to unite 2 criminal empires. He stopped in front of Isabella. Up close, he seemed even more controlled. His expression remained unreadable, but his eyes searched hers with an intensity that made the crowded theater disappear. Did anyone else see the markings? He asked. Bianca. A collective breath moved through the audience when Isabella said the bride's name without a title. Matteo did not react. Anyone else? One of your guards may have seen the gown open. Why did you cut the symbols out? Because she told me to close the lining and remain silent. The theater became quieter. Bianca stepped forward. She is lying. Matteo looked toward her. Are you saying there were no markings? Bianca hesitated. Vittorio answered for her. We will not conduct an interrogation before an audience. No, Matteo said. We will not. He turned back to Isabella and extended his hand. For several seconds, she only stared at it. The hand of the most feared man in Sicily, offered openly to a seamstress in front of the woman he was supposed to marry. Come with me, he said. Isabella's pulse thundered in her ears. Where? Somewhere the walls are not filled with men who have already decided what you are worth. His voice remained quiet, but the microphones carried every word. The entire opera house went silent. Bianca stood beneath the chandeliers in the wedding gown Isabella had created for her. Vittorio Vescari stared with the cold rage of a king watching his crown carried away. Every powerful family in Sicily waited. Isabella looked down at Matteo's hand. Then she placed hers inside it. The lights went out. Darkness swallowed the theater. The first gunshot came from the royal box. Screams broke through the blackness. Matteo pulled Isabella against him before she understood what was happening. His arm locked around her waist as a second shot struck the gold table where he had been standing moments earlier. Down, he brought her to the stage floor and covered her with his body. The orchestra pit erupted in panic. Chairs overturned. People ran toward exits that did not open. Emergency lights flashed red along the balconies. Matteo raised his head. Lucia. No answer. Another shot tore through the curtain. Bellini guards fired toward the royal box. Isabella pressed both hands against the stage, struggling to breathe beneath the weight of Matteo's protection. The tunnels, she said. He looked down at her. The map leads below us. A section of scenery collapsed nearby. Matteo pulled her upright. Show me. What about the audience? My men will secure them. The eastern exits are blocked. His gaze sharpened. How do you know? The map. The symbols marked the service corridors. If the attack was planned around the tunnels, they may have sealed the public doors to force people toward the west lobby. Why? The west lobby has glass walls. Matteo understood instantly, a place where frightened guests would become visible targets. He caught the nearest guard by the shoulder. Open the eastern doors. Break them if necessary. Move everyone through the rehearsal courtyard. Your sister is missing. Matteo's face changed. It lasted less than a second, but Isabella saw it. The cold control broke just enough to reveal terror. Then it closed again. He looked at Isabella. Where is the nearest entrance below the stage? She pointed toward the old lift platform. Behind the third backdrop. He took her hand again. This time there was no audience to witness it. They ran. Behind them, the theater dissolved into red light. Gunfire. Shattered glass. And the rising cries of people who had entered, expecting an engagement, and now fought to escape alive. The old lift platform had not been used in 20 years. Isabella found the iron release beneath layers of dust and pulled with both hands. The floor opened 6 inches, then stopped. Matteo wedged his fingers into the gap. Move back. He lifted. The hidden door groaned upward. Cold air rose from the darkness below. A narrow staircase descended beneath the stage. Matteo switched on the light attached to his phone. You first. Isabella stared at him. You expect me to enter a tunnel someone marked as part of your assassination? I expect you to know the building better than I do. That is not the same as knowing what waits below. No. His eyes held hers. But if anyone follows, they reach me before they reach you. There was no time to argue. Isabella gathered her skirt and descended. Matteo followed, lowering the door above them. The darkness closed. The passage smelled of wet stone, old wood, and seawater carried through cracks beneath the city. The opera house had been built over the ruins of a monastery. Some tunnels were Roman. Others had been carved by smugglers. Isabella had only entered them twice, both times during safety inspections. She had never gone beyond the marked corridors. Matteo moved behind her without sound. How many exits? He asked. 4 that are documented. And undocumented? If they were documented, they would not be undocumented. A pause. Then, unexpectedly, fair. She looked back at him. Red emergency light slipped through a grate above, cutting across his face. He seemed almost unreal beneath it. Black tuxedo, controlled expression, one hand beneath his jacket. Are you carrying a gun? Yes. I don't like guns. Neither do the people they are pointed at. That is not comforting. It was not intended to be. They continued. Above them, muffled footsteps crossed the stage. Matteo's phone vibrated. He answered immediately. Speak. A man's voice came through, tense and rapid. Matteo listened. Get the guests out. Find Lucia. No one leaves the island. He ended the call. Your sister? Still missing. Isabella stopped. He nearly walked into her. What? The markings. She took the fabric from his jacket before he could object and opened it beneath the phone's light. The 3 circles. Rehearsal hall, royal box, stage lift. That's what I thought. But the stitch inside the 3rd circle is different. She ran her fingertip over the black knot. It isn't marking the lift. What is it marking? A room beside the lift. There's no room beside the lift. Not on modern plans. Matteo looked toward the wall. Isabella remembered something an elderly stage carpenter once told her. San Celeste had been rebuilt after a fire in 1950. 1. During reconstruction, several lower chambers were sealed rather than repaired. She placed her palm against the stone. The old music archive. Matteo went still. What archive? Records, scores, financial documents. It was damaged by water and closed before I was born. Where is the entrance? She moved along the wall, searching for a change in the stonework. Matteo watched her. What did Bianca say when she saw the symbols? She told me I did not understand family matters. What else? That you would not listen to me. And yet you continued trying. Isabella found a narrow vertical line in the wall. I didn't do it for you. His gaze settled on her profile. No, I did it because hundreds of people were entering a building that might become a trap. You walked onto a stage filled with men who could destroy your life. I had already tried polite methods. Something changed in his eyes. Not softness. Interest. A dangerous, focused interest that made her more nervous than his weapon. You are either very brave, he said, or unusually incapable of protecting yourself. Those qualities sometimes look identical from the outside. She pushed against the stone. Nothing moved. Matteo placed his hand beside hers. His body came close behind her. Not touching. Almost. She felt the heat of him through the cold air. There. She whispered, pointing toward a rusted iron plate near the floor. Together, they pushed. The hidden door opened inward. The smell reached them first. Smoke. Then perfume. Matteo entered before Isabella could stop him. His phone light swept across a forgotten chamber filled with collapsed shelves and water-damaged papers. Lucia Bellini sat against the far wall. Her hands were bound. A bruise darkened one side of her face. Beside her stood the Bellini guard who had seen Isabella with the gown. He held a gun against Lucia's head. I am sorry, signor, the guard said. Matteo's weapon was already in his hand. The guard pressed the barrel harder against Lucia. Lower it. Matteo did not move. Lucia's terrified eyes shifted toward Isabella. The room was too narrow. One wrong movement would kill her. Who paid you? Matteo asked. The guard swallowed. No one paid me. Then you betrayed me for free. For my family. Bescari has them? My wife. My sons. Matteo's expression remained controlled, but his voice changed. Vittorio promised to release them if you delivered Lucia? And the seamstress. Isabella's blood chilled. Matteo's eyes flicked toward her. It was the smallest movement. The guards saw it. So it is true, he whispered. What is true? Matteo asked. That she matters. She warned me of an attack. That makes her useful. The guard laughed nervously. You left Bianca Vescari on stage and took this woman's hand in front of all Sicily. Matteo's face revealed nothing. Your interpretation of social gestures is about to become irrelevant. The guard's finger tightened on the trigger. Isabella looked at Lucia, then at the shelves above the guard. Water damage had rotted the wood. One support beam leaned at an angle. Isabella moved half a step. The gun swung toward her. Matteo shifted instantly between them. Do not point that at her. The calm disappeared from his voice. Not completely, but enough. The guard heard it too. His eyes widened. Isabella grabbed the edge of the damaged shelf and pulled. The wood broke. Stacks of swollen books and metal record boxes crashed down. Lucia threw herself sideways. Matteo fired once. The guard fell behind the collapsing shelves. The sound exploded through the chamber. Then silence returned. Isabella stood frozen, both hands still gripping the broken wood. Matteo crossed to the guard, kicked the weapon away, then knelt beside Lucia. He cut the rope around her wrists. Lucia collapsed against him. For one moment, Matteo held his sister with both arms. His eyes closed. The feared man from the royal box disappeared. In his place was a brother who had nearly arrived too late. I told you not to come tonight, Lucia whispered. And I told you never to ignore my instructions. You were going to marry her. I was going to sign an agreement. You would have become trapped. Matteo pulled back. The stitches, Isabella said. Lucia looked toward her. Guilt filled her face. You embroidered them. Lucia nodded. I could not speak openly. My father's old allies watch me. Vittorio watches everyone. You could have come to me, Matteo said. No. You would have confronted him before we had proof. He tried to kill me. And now we have proof. Matteo stood. Where? Lucia looked around the ruined archive. Here. She pointed toward the flooded floor. Our mother hid a ledger beneath this room before she died. It contains every payment Vittorio made to judges, ministers, and Bellini captains. She discovered he was planning to take control of our family from inside. Matteo's face became still again. You knew this? I found her letters 3 months ago. And said nothing. I needed the original ledger. You allowed an attack to happen. I tried to warn you. You placed a message inside Bianca's gown and trusted chance to deliver it. I trusted Isabella. The words settled between them. Isabella stared at Lucia. You know me? I have watched you work for years. That is not an answer. Lucia stood unsteadily. The first letter from our mother said the ledger could only be recovered by the heir of San Celeste. Isabella felt the room tilt. What heir? Lucia looked at her with tears still shining in her eyes. You. Above them, an explosion shook dust from the ceiling. Matteo reached for Isabella as the floor trembled. His hand closed around her waist. The touch lasted only long enough to steady her. Then he released her. What does she mean? Isabella asked. Lucia drew a breath. The opera house did not belong to the Bellinis or the Vescaris. It belonged to the Moretti family before the war. The final owner had one daughter, Elena Moretti. My mother's name was Eleanor Moore. She changed it when she left Sicily. Isabella shook her head. My mother was born in Boston. No, she escaped to Boston. Matteo's gaze moved between them. Lucia, we do not have time for fragments. She was Elena Moretti's daughter, Lucia said. Isabella is the last legal heir to Teatro San Celeste. Another explosion sounded. This one was closer. Smoke began entering through the open doorway. Matteo took control immediately. We move. The ledger, Lucia said. We survive first. If Vittorio reaches it. He will not. How can you know? Matteo looked at Isabella. Because he no longer knows which of us is the most dangerous person in this tunnel. They left the archive through a narrow passage leading toward the eastern courtyard. The opera house groaned above them. Fire alarms echoed through the stone. Water dripped from the ceiling. Somewhere beyond the walls, men shouted orders. Lucia walked between Isabella and Matteo, one hand against her bruised face. They reached a fork in the corridor. Isabella looked at the faded directional marks. The courtyard is left. Matteo listened. Footsteps approached from the left. He switched off his phone. Darkness swallowed them. He moved Isabella and Lucia against the wall, then positioned himself in front of them. The footsteps came closer. 3 men. Perhaps 4. A flashlight beam appeared around the corner. Matteo raised his weapon. Isabella placed her hand on his arm. There's another way. He looked down at her in the darkness. A costume shaft runs above this passage. It was used to move scenery before the new loading system. Where? She felt along the wall until her hand found an iron ring. She pulled. A narrow panel opened. Matteo looked at the black space beyond it. You first, he said again. You enjoy sending me into dark holes. I enjoy knowing where you are. The words came too quickly to be meaningless. For one suspended second, neither of them moved. Then the flashlight beam grew brighter. Isabella entered the shaft. Lucia followed. Matteo came last and pulled the panel closed just as armed men entered the passage. They climbed in silence. The shaft was steep and narrow. Dust coated Isabella's hands. Her dress caught twice on broken nails. Matteo stayed directly below her. When her shoe slipped from a wooden brace, his hand caught her calf. The contact sent heat through her despite the cold. I have you, he said. His voice was low. Too close. Isabella steadied herself. You can let go. He did. Immediately. But the place where his fingers had touched seemed to remember him. They emerged behind the scenery workshop. The room was filled with unfinished statues, painted trees, false balconies, and enormous wooden horses waiting for future productions. Smoke drifted beneath the ceiling. Several stagehands were trapped near the loading door, struggling to lift a fallen beam from an older man's legs. Matteo headed toward the opposite exit. Isabella stopped. We have to help them. His gaze moved to the stagehands, then toward the corridor, where armed men could appear at any moment. My sister needs medical attention. So does he. Isabella. You have guards outside. They have no one. Matteo stepped closer. His voice dropped. I am trying to keep you alive, and I am telling you I will not leave them. You do not understand the danger. I understand exactly. I also understand that power means nothing if you only use it for the people you love. His jaw tightened. Lucia watched them silently. Matteo looked toward the fallen beam again. Then he put away his weapon. Get Lucia behind the marble set. He crossed the room and seized the beam with both hands. The stagehands stared. Lift, he ordered. They obeyed. Together, they raised the beam enough for Isabella to crawl beside the injured man and pull him free. The older stagehand cried out, gripping her arm. You're safe, she told him. We're getting you out. Matteo lowered the beam. Glass shattered in the corridor. He drew his weapon again. Now we leave. No one argued. He guided the workers through the costume loading bay and into the eastern courtyard, where rain poured beneath the yellow glow of emergency lights. Black SUVs filled the street. Bellini guards moved guests toward safety while police sirens approached from the city below. The moment Matteo appeared, his men surrounded him. Where is Viscari? He demanded. Gone. Bianca, also gone. The theater director? Missing. Matteo looked back at the opera house. Flames glowed behind the upper windows. Seal every road to the coast. A guard glanced at Isabella. What about her? Matteo did not hesitate. She comes with me. Isabella stepped away from him. No. Rain ran across his face. He turned slowly. This building is burning. Vittorio Viscari knows your identity, and men were ordered to capture you. I am not getting inside a car without knowing where you are taking me. To safety. Your definition of safety includes guns, tunnels, and people disappearing. My definition of safety is breathing tomorrow. My apartment is being searched already. She stared at him. How do you know? I had men sent there 6 minutes ago. You sent people into my home? I sent them to prevent someone else from reaching it first. You do not get to decide that without asking me. A flicker of disbelief passed through the guards. No one spoke to Matteo Bellini like that in the rain. Surrounded by his armed men and burning property, Matteo stepped closer until the umbrellas and shouting faded around them. You are correct, he said. Isabella had prepared herself for a command. The agreement disarmed her more effectively. He opened the rear door of a black SUV. I am asking now. Come with me because the man who tried to kill me has discovered you are the legal owner of the most valuable building in Palermo. Come because your mother's past is buried beneath that stage. Come because until I understand why Vittorio needs you alive, every location connected to you is compromised. His eyes held hers. And come because I will not leave you standing in the street while someone decides whether to place a bullet through your window. The rain struck the pavement between them. Isabella looked toward the injured workers being loaded into ambulances. Then at Lucia, pale beneath a guard's coat. Finally, she looked at Matteo. I am not your prisoner. No. You do not enter my room without permission. No. You tell me where we are going. My family estate outside Cefalù. And if I decide to leave, his face became unreadable. Then I will provide a car, guards, and enough information for you to understand why leaving is a terrible decision. That was not an answer. It is the only honest one I have. She got into the SUV. Matteo sat beside her. As the door closed, Teatro San Celeste burned behind them. The Bellini estate stood on a cliff above the Tyrrhenian Sea. They arrived shortly before dawn. The storm had followed them north. Waves crashed against black rocks below the property. Cypress trees bent beneath the wind. The mansion itself rose from the cliff in pale stone and dark glass, old enough to have survived generations of men who believed permanence could be inherited. Isabella was given a bedroom overlooking the sea. The door did not lock from the outside. She checked twice. Fresh clothes waited on the bed, not designer dresses selected by someone guessing what a woman like her should wear, but soft black trousers, a cream sweater, and undergarments in the correct size. That disturbed her more than incorrect clothing would have. She found Matteo in the library an hour later. He had changed into a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. A dark bruise marked one side of his ribs beneath the fabric. He stood at a table covered in old property records, letters, and photographs. Lucia was being treated upstairs by a private physician. Matteo looked up when Isabella entered. You should sleep. You know my clothing size. One of my employees contacted the wardrobe department. That quickly? I employ efficient people. Some of them kidnap your sister. His expression cooled. The reminder had struck where she intended. I apologize, Isabella said. That was cruel. It was accurate. She approached the table. A photograph lay near his hand. It showed a young woman standing on the stage of Teatro San Celeste nearly 40 years earlier. She wore a dark dress and held a violin. Her face looked painfully familiar. Isabella picked it up. My mother, Elena Moretti, Matteo said. Taken in 1986. She told me she had never been to Sicily. She was protecting you. From what? That is what we need to learn. Isabella looked at the records. Lucia said I own the theater. If these documents are legitimate, your mother inherited it from her grandfather. Ownership was transferred illegally after she disappeared. To whom? The Bellini Cultural Foundation. She met his eyes. Your family stole it. Yes. The direct admission silenced her. You say that very easily. I did not commit the theft. But you benefited from it. Yes. And now, if the claim is valid, the theater is yours. She searched his face for mockery. There was none. You would return it? It was never ours. That principle seems inconvenient for a mafia boss. Most principles are. She put down the photograph. What is the ledger? Matteo looked toward the sea. My mother discovered that Vittorio Vescari had spent years buying Bellini captains, judges, port officials, and politicians. She intended to expose him to my father. What happened? She died before she could. How? Her car left the coastal road during a storm. You believe Vittorio caused it? I know he did, but you could never prove it. No. So you agreed to marry his daughter? I agreed to a public alliance. That is not different enough to matter to Bianca. Something cold entered his face. Bianca understands contracts. She was wearing a wedding gown. For the announcement photographs, you let her believe she would become your wife. I told her exactly what the agreement required. And what did it require? A legal marriage within 6 months. Isabella stared at him. So you were going to marry her? Yes. The answer struck with unreasonable force. She turned away from the table. She had known him for less than 12 hours. She had no right to care whom he married. Yet the image of Matteo beside Bianca beneath the chandeliers created a sharp pressure beneath her ribs. He watched her. Does that bother you? The quiet question made her look back. It concerns me that you nearly tied your life to a woman who may have known about your assassination. That is not what I asked. It is the answer you are receiving. For the first time, something almost like amusement touched his eyes. It vanished quickly. He picked up another photograph. This one showed the opera stage after a fire. A blackened section of floor had collapsed above the old archive. My mother believed the ledger was sealed beneath the theater. Your mother helped her hide it. Why? Elena worked in costume design. They were friends. My mother never mentioned her. People who escape powerful families rarely preserve the details. Isabella studied him. How long have you been investigating San Celeste? 8 years. And you never discovered the hidden archive? No. You control the building. I control the board, the security, and the public records. The theater itself appears to resist me. It has good instincts. His gaze lifted to hers. The silence between them changed. Not warmer, more aware. Isabella felt it in the way his eyes remained on her face, instead of moving over her body as powerful men often did when they believed admiration excused entitlement. Matteo did not look at her casually. He looked as though every expression mattered, as though he intended to remember them. You should have gone through with the announcement, she said. Why? Vittorio now knows you suspect him. He tried to kill me. Subtlety has become unnecessary. You also humiliated Bianca publicly. She threatened you. Isabella went still. You heard that? One of my guards reported the conversation before he betrayed us. Then you knew I was telling the truth before you walked onto the stage. I knew there were markings, but you still asked me in front of everyone. I needed to see whether Bianca would lie. And taking my hand? His expression did not change. That was not part of the test. The air seemed to thin around her. Before she could answer, the library doors opened. A tall man with light brown hair entered carrying a folder. He wore a gray suit without a tie and possessed the tired confidence of someone accustomed to entering dangerous rooms. Matteo. His gaze moved toward Isabella. He smiled. Isabella Moore, I assume. Matteo's face became colder. This is Gabriel Conti, my attorney. Former attorney. Gabriel corrected. Current unwilling participant in your family disasters. He offered Isabella his hand. She shook it. Unlike Matteo, Gabriel's charm was immediate and easy. I have reviewed the property records, he said. You may genuinely own one of the most important cultural landmarks in Sicily. I own a sewing machine and several unpaid bills. Then the transition should be entertaining. Matteo looked at Gabriel's hand, still holding Isabella's. Gabriel noticed. His smile deepened before he released her. "We also have a problem," he said. Matteo's attention sharpened. The police recovered the engagement contract from the stage. Vittorio's people are telling the press Isabella sabotaged the ceremony because she had developed an obsession with you. Isabella laughed once. It contained no humor. Of course they are. There is more. Bianca gave a statement claiming Isabella attacked her in the costume room and planted the map inside the gown. That is impossible, Isabella said. Truth has never been a requirement for scandal. Matteo took the folder. Photographs filled the first pages. Isabella entering the stage. Matteo offering his hand. Their faces close together beneath the lights. Headlines had already appeared. The seamstress who stole a mafia prince. Secret lover destroys Sicilian dynasty. Bellini abandons heiress for unknown woman. One photograph showed Bianca crying in the wedding gown. Another showed Isabella standing behind Matteo as guards surrounded them. The framing made her look calculating, triumphant, as though she had entered the theater intending to take Bianca's place. Matteo closed the folder. "Remove the stories." Gabriel sighed. "That is not how an international press scandal works." "Then purchase the publications." "All of them?" "If necessary." Isabella stared at him. "You cannot buy every person who says something cruel." "No," Matteo said. "But I can make cruelty expensive. I don't need you to destroy newspapers for me." "What do you need?" "The truth. We will release the security footage." Gabriel shook his head. The relevant cameras lost power before the attack. Matteo's face hardened. "Convenient." "Very." Isabella looked at the photograph again. "What happens if they convince people I invented the threat?" "Vittorio petitions the cultural ministry to declare you mentally unstable and legally incapable of claiming ownership," Gabriel said. "Bianca then sues for reputational damage." Meanwhile, Vescari. Friendly police search your apartment and discover whatever evidence they place there. Matteo's voice became dangerously quiet. No one enters her apartment. They already did. Every light in the mansion seemed to dim. Gabriel placed another photograph on the table. Isabella's apartment had been torn apart. Drawers emptied. Mattress cut open. Her mother's photographs scattered across the floor. On the wall above her bed, someone had painted a message in black. "The theater buried your mother. It will bury you." Isabella's knees weakened. She caught the edge of the table. Matteo was beside her immediately. His hand closed around her elbow, steady but careful. "Sit." "I'm fine. You are not." "I said I'm fine." His grip loosened, but he did not step away. The scent of rain and smoke still clung faintly to him. "Did they take anything?" she asked. "Your mother's locked box is missing," Gabriel said. Isabella looked up. "What box?" "It was found beneath the floorboards in your bedroom." "I did not know it existed." Matteo's eyes met Gabriel's. "Find it. I have people searching. Use more." Gabriel gathered the photographs. "I will also need a public strategy." "No interviews," Matteo said. "I was asking Isabella." The distinction mattered. Matteo's expression suggested he disliked it. Isabella straightened. "What strategy?" "The story currently presents Bianca as an abandoned bride and you as a jealous employee. We can challenge it, but we need to explain why Matteo publicly chose to leave with you." Gabriel looked between them. "Preferably without saying he was captivated by your bravery and lost his judgment in front of 500 witnesses." Matteo's gaze turned lethal. Gabriel remained calm. Isabella looked at Matteo. "Is that what happened?" "No." The answer came quickly. Too quickly. She felt foolish for the disappointment. Matteo released her arm. "I recognized a threat," he said. "I removed the person who identified it from a compromised location." "By holding her hand on stage?" Gabriel asked. "Leave. An excellent legal argument. Now." Gabriel smiled at Isabella. "We will continue when he remembers he cannot intimidate paperwork." After he left, silence filled the library. Isabella crossed her arms. "You were captivated by my bravery?" "No." "Good. I was furious." "At me?" "At everyone who made you believe you needed permission to speak." She looked at him. His control remained intact, but something darker moved beneath it. "You knew nothing about me. I knew you had discovered a threat and continued trying to warn me after Bianca intimidated you. That does not mean I needed rescuing." "No." "Then why did you offer your hand?" His eyes moved to hers. "Because you were standing alone." The simplicity of the answer struck deeper than flattery could have. He stepped closer. "Everyone in that theater had decided you were invisible until your warning became useful. I wanted them to look at you before they looked at me. Her breath caught. That was reckless. Yes. You do reckless things often? Never. The word rested between them. Outside, waves struck the cliff. Matteo lifted one hand. For one impossible second, Isabella thought he might touch her face. His fingers stopped inches from her cheek. The air between them seemed charged. His gaze dropped briefly to her mouth. Then his hand closed into a fist and fell to his side. Sleep, he said. He walked out before she could answer. The next 3 days turned the Bellini estate into a fortress. Black vehicles arrived hourly. Men entered the library carrying intelligence reports, photographs, and intercepted messages. Guards watched the cliffs and gates. Helicopters crossed the gray sky above the sea. Isabella slept badly. When she closed her eyes, she saw the opera house burning. She heard the gunshot in the archive. She felt Matteo's body covering hers on the stage. During the day, she worked. Lucia had arranged for several damaged costumes to be delivered from San Celeste. Saving silk from smoke and water gave Isabella something she understood. Fabric could be repaired. A seam could be opened and remade. Human trust was more difficult. Lucia joined her in a sunlit room overlooking the gardens. The bruise on her face had begun fading. I am sorry, Lucia said. Isabella continued separating wet lace. For involving me? For trusting you without asking. That sounds like a Bellini family habit. Lucia smiled faintly. My brother is not accustomed to asking. I noticed. He is trying. Is he? He asked whether you wanted coffee before sending it this morning. Isabella looked toward the untouched cup beside her. He did not ask me. He asked 3 employees until someone knew how you take it. That is not the same thing. For Matteo, it may be more intimate. Isabella returned to the lace. Why did you trust me? Lucia's expression became serious. 2 years ago, one of Vittorio's men offered you 10,000 euros to replace a costume bag after a charity performance. Isabella remembered. A drunken businessman had asked her to switch 2 garment cases without explaining why. She refused and reported him to the theater director. The director had ordered her not to mention it again. That man was moving financial records through the wardrobe department, Lucia said. You ruined the transfer. I thought he was stealing jewelry. You refused the money, even though your landlord had threatened eviction that month. Isabella's hand stopped. How do you know about my landlord? Matteo investigated everyone working near the hidden archive. A chill moved through her. He investigated me? He investigates possible threats. For 2 years? Lucia hesitated. That hesitation answered more than words. Isabella stood. Where is he? She found Matteo on the lower terrace speaking with 2 captains. He dismissed them when he saw her face. What happened? You investigated me. Yes. For how long? 2 years. You knew about my rent, my work schedule, my mother, and probably every person I have ever had dinner with. Yes. The lack of denial angered her more. Did you watch me? I monitored the theater. That is not what I asked. His gaze remained steady. There were cameras in the work corridors. Were there cameras inside the costume room? No. My apartment? No. My street? Yes. She stepped back. So while I was working, you had men following me. Not continuously. That is supposed to make me feel better? It was security surveillance. I did not consent to security surveillance. You were connected to a location where my mother hid evidence before her death. I did not know that. I did not know whether you knew. So you treated me like a suspect. At first, the final 2 words sharpened the air. And after? Matteo's face changed almost imperceptibly. After, I continued because Vittorio's men had noticed you. Why? You refused bribes. You moved freely through restricted sections of the theater. You resembled Elena Moretti. And you decided to protect me. Yes. Without telling me. Yes. Without allowing me to decide whether I wanted your protection. Yes. Her laugh broke. You do not protect people, Matteo. You surround them until they cannot see where your control ends and their life begins. Something moved in his eyes. Pain, perhaps. But his voice remained level. You were alive because my men were watching your street. And now my home is destroyed because I entered your world. You were born into this world whether you knew it or not. No. I was born into my mother's life. She escaped people like you. The words landed. He looked toward the sea. When did your concern stop being professional? Isabella asked. His attention returned to her. I did not say it had. You took my hand in front of Sicily. I told you why. You nearly touched me in the library. His silence confirmed that he remembered. You become angry when Gabriel stands near me. I become angry when Gabriel exists near anyone. Despite herself, she almost smiled. Matteo noticed. The intensity in his gaze deepened. Isabella's smile vanished. You know more about me than I know about you. Ask. The invitation surprised her. She stepped closer. Did you love your mother? Yes. Did you watch her die? No. Do you blame yourself? A long pause. Yes. Why? I was 14. She called the house twice the night she died. I was angry with her and refused to answer. The confession seemed to cost him something physical. He continued before she could speak. She left a message telling me to protect Lucia. I deleted it because I did not want my father to hear her fear. How do you know what she said? I recovered the recording years later. Isabella's anger softened against her will. You were a child. I was old enough to answer a telephone. That does not make her death your fault. I know, but you do not believe it. No. The honesty created a dangerous tenderness between them. She looked at his hands. Hands that commanded men. Hands that had lifted a beam to save a stage worker. Hands that had stopped before touching her. What would have happened if I had not found the stitches? She asked. I would have stood beneath the stage at 11:15. You would be dead. Possibly. You say that as though it does not matter. It matters to many people. That is not what I asked. His eyes held hers. The wind pulled at the loose strands of her hair. Does it matter to you? He asked. The question felt unfair. Too intimate. I barely know you. That was not an answer. She recognized her own words. It mattered when I found the map. Because of the guests. Yes. Only them? She should have stepped away. Instead, she remained close enough to see the faint scar near his temple. No, she admitted. Matteo's control shifted. He lifted his hand again. This time, his fingers reached her hair. He brushed one strand from her cheek with such restraint that the gentleness felt more dangerous than possession. Isabella stopped breathing. His thumb hovered near her skin. Then his phone rang. The moment broke. Matteo's face closed as he answered. What? He listened. Every trace of warmth disappeared. Where? Another pause. I am coming. He ended the call. What happened? Isabella asked. Gabriel found your mother's box. Where? At a Viscari warehouse near Palermo. I'm going with you. No. You just said it belonged to my mother. The warehouse may be a trap. It is definitely a trap. That does not improve your argument. You need me to identify what is inside. I will bring it here, assuming Vittorio does not burn it the moment he sees your cars. Matteo stared at her. She crossed her arms. You can ask me to remain. You would refuse. Yes. Then I am wasting time. The warehouse stood beside Palermo's old harbor beneath a sky heavy with rain. Matteo brought 12 men. Isabella rode in the armored SUV beside him. Neither spoke during the drive. The city blurred beyond dark glass. Laundry moved from balconies. Church domes rose above crowded roofs. Farther down the hill, the Mediterranean appeared steel gray beneath the storm. When they reached the harbor, Matteo placed a protective vest in her lap. Wear it. She examined it. It will not fit. It was made for you. Her head lifted. When? This morning. You ordered body armor in my size? I ordered several. Of course you did. Wear it. She pulled it over her sweater. Matteo adjusted the side strap, his fingers brushing her waist. The contact was practical. Her body did not interpret it that way. His Hase met hers. For a moment, neither moved. Then he tightened the strap and withdrew. Stay behind me. That depends on where you stand. Isabella. I heard you. The warehouse doors were open. Inside, rainwater had formed dark puddles across the concrete. Shipping crates climbed toward the rafters. One bare light swung above the center aisle. The mother's box sat beneath it. Small, wooden, alone. Matteo stopped 20 feet away. No one approaches. His men spread through the building. Gabriel appeared from behind a stack of crates. Before anyone shoots me, I should mention that I am unarmed. Matteo's weapon remained lowered but ready. What are you doing here? Saving you from entering through the east door. It is wired. Isabella looked around. Where are your people? 2 outside. 1 unconscious. The others disappeared when the lights came on. Matteo's eyes narrowed. You were followed. I assumed that when someone attempted to strike me with a pipe, a speaker crackled above them. Vittorio Viscari's voice filled the warehouse. Matteo. Every Bellini guard raised a weapon. Vittorio continued. You turned a family celebration into an international humiliation. You accused my daughter, stole an employee from her workplace, and placed armed men on my roads. Matteo looked toward the upper windows. You attempted to murder me in a public theater. A dramatique accusation. Come say that to my face. I am old enough to recognize an invitation without accepting it. Isabella looked at the box. A folded piece of paper had been placed on top. Her name was written across it. Isabella Moore, Vittorio said through the speaker. Your mother understood what happens to women who stand between powerful men. Open the box, and you will understand too. Matteo caught Isabella's arm as she moved. No, my name is on it. That is why you will not touch it. Then how do we recover it? We do not. You came here for the box. I came because you insisted. And now? Now I am correcting the mistake. He signaled his men toward the exits. Vittorio laughed through the speaker. There it is. Bellini devotion. It always arrives too late. The warehouse doors slammed shut. Lights exploded overhead. Smoke began pouring from vents near the floor. Matteo pulled Isabella's sweater over her mouth and guided her behind a concrete support. Chemical? Gabriel shouted. Probably irritant, Matteo answered. Not poison. Vittorio wants her alive. How comforting, Isabella coughed. Gunfire struck the crates above them. Matteo covered her with his body. His men returned fire toward the rafters. Wood splintered. The swinging light shattered. Matteo looked toward the harbor-facing wall. There is water behind that panel. Isabella followed his gaze. An old loading gate had been welded shut. The metal is rusted near the bottom, she said. Matteo shouted to his men. Two moved toward the gate under covering fire. A bullet struck the concrete inches from Isabella's head. Matteo turned and fired. A shadow fell from the upper walkway. His face remained calm, but his breathing had changed. Faster, not from fear for himself. His hand pressed against the back of Isabella's neck, keeping her below the support. Look at me. Smoke burned her eyes. She looked up. You stay with me. I'm not planning to wander away. If I tell you to run, you run. And leave you? Yes. No. His expression sharpened. That was not a request. Then you already know my answer. For one brief second, fury and something far more vulnerable fought across his face. The loading gate groaned. Bellini men tore open a gap near the floor. Cold harbor air rushed inside. Move, Matteo ordered. Guards began exiting. Gabriel reached the opening first, then turned to help Isabella. Matteo caught his shoulder. I have her. The possessiveness in his voice was unmistakable. Gabriel raised both hands. Matteo guided Isabella toward the gate. A gunshot cracked from above. His body jerked. He pushed her through the opening. Isabella hit wet pavement outside. Matteo followed, landing on one knee. Blood darkened the upper sleeve of his white shirt. Her heart stopped. You're hurt. It passed through. That does not mean you are fine. His men surrounded them and moved them toward the vehicles. Isabella pressed both hands over his arm. Blood seeped between her fingers. Matteo looked down at her. The harbor, shouting guards, and rain seemed to disappear from his attention. Are you injured? He asked. You were shot. Answer me. No. Only then did his shoulders ease. Not much. Enough for her to see. A guard carried the wooden box from the warehouse. Matteo's expression hardened. I said leave it. The seamstress took it, the guard answered. A woman stepped from behind the SUV. Bianca Viscari. She wore a long black coat and held Matteo's gun against the side of the box. Everyone froze. Isabella stared at her. Bianca's face was pale beneath the rain. You should have stayed backstage, she said. Matteo moved slightly in front of Isabella, despite the blood running down his arm. Put the gun down, Bianca. You destroyed me. Your father tried to kill me. My father tried to prevent you from destroying everything. He used you. He gave me purpose. No. He gave you instructions. Bianca's eyes filled with tears. You were supposed to marry me. I was supposed to sign a contract. You would have learned to love me. Matteo's face did not change. The absence of hope in his expression seemed to wound her more than cruelty. Bianca looked at Isabella, and then she walked onto the stage. I walked onto the stage because someone embroidered an execution schedule into your dress. I did not know he would attack during the announcement. Isabella heard the confession. So did everyone else. Matteo's voice became soft. You knew there would be an attack. Bianca swallowed. I believed he would frighten you, force you to complete the marriage. He took Lucia. I did not know. He ordered Isabella captured. I did not know. The gun shook in her hand. Isabella looked at the box. Bianca, whatever your father promised, it ends when he has what he wants. You know nothing about him. I know he left you standing in a burning theater while he escaped. The words struck. Bianca's grip weakened. Matteo took one step. Give me the weapon. Bianca looked at him. Rain ran down her face like tears. You chose her. I chose to stop an assassination. No. Before the lights went out, you looked at her as though the entire room had disappeared. Matteo said nothing. His silence was an answer. Bianca's face crumpled. The gun lowered. Then a shot came from across the harbor. Matteo seized Isabella and pulled her down. Bianca spoon. The bullet struck the box from her hand. It shattered on the pavement. Papers scattered beneath the rain. A black car accelerated away from the far road. Vittorio's shooter. Matteo's men returned fire, but the vehicle disappeared between warehouses. Bianca stared at the ruined box. Then she ran. 2 guards moved after her. Let her go, Matteo said. He turned immediately to Isabella. She was already crawling through the wet papers. Your arm needs treatment. These belong to my mother. They will be recovered. Ink dissolved beneath the rain. Isabella found a sealed envelope wrapped in oilcloth. Her name was written across the front. She held it against her chest. Matteo looked at the envelope, then at her face. His own had lost color. We leave now. Back at the estate, a physician removed the bullet fragments and closed Matteo's wound. He refused sedation. Isabella stood near the window of his bedroom while the doctor worked. You do not have to remain, Matteo said. Yes, I do. Why? You were shot because you covered me. I was shot because Vittorio employs men with poor aim. You always do that. Do what? Turn pain into an inconvenience before anyone can care about it. The physician glanced between them and wisely remained silent. Matteo's eyes stayed on Isabella. I am not accustomed to being cared for. That is not a virtue. No. When the physician finished, Matteo dismissed everyone except her. The room became quiet. Rain tapped the balcony doors. Isabella held her mother's envelope but had not opened it. Matteo sat at the edge of the bed, his shirt removed, a white bandage wrapped around his upper arm and shoulder. His body carried scars, thin lines across his ribs, a pale mark near his collarbone, evidence of a life he never discussed. Isabella looked away. You can look, he said. Heat rose in her face. I was not staring. You were. Your modesty appears unharmed. It was never particularly strong. That almost sounded like humor. She sat in the chair across from him. Open the letter, he said. You do not want to know what it says? Yes. But you are not demanding to read it. It is yours. She studied him. Does respecting boundaries cause you physical pain? Occasionally. She broke the seal. The paper inside was old and carefully folded. My dearest Isabella, if you are reading this, then the life I tried to build for you has been reached by the one I escaped. You will be told that Teatro San Celeste belongs to you. Legally, that may be true. Morally, I do not know whether anyone can own a place that has swallowed so many secrets. Your grandmother used the theater to hide money for men who destroyed families. My father believed beauty could excuse corruption. I learned too late that beautiful rooms can become prisons when powerful men control every door. I left Sicily because Vittorio Viscari discovered that Sofia Bellini and I had collected evidence against him. Sofia believed her husband would act. I knew he would not. The ledger remains beneath the stage, but it cannot be reached through the archive. The key is sewn into the original curtain created for the opera La Regina Senza Corona, the Queen Without a Crown. Do not trust a Bellini simply because he protects you. Protection can become another cage. But do not judge a son entirely by the sins of his father. Watch what he destroys to keep his power. Then watch what he is willing to destroy to let you remain free. I loved you enough to disappear. Live bravely enough that you never have to. Your mother. Isabella read the final line twice. Then she lowered the paper. Matteo had gone completely still. Your mother knew mine, he said. She called her Sophia. Only close friends use that name. She warned me not to trust you. She was wise. Isabella looked at him. You agree? Yes. Why? Because I have already taken control of your security, your location, and the information surrounding your identity. You also admitted it. Confession does not transform control into virtue. She folded the letter. The key is in the original curtain. La Regina Senza Corona, Matteo said. The Queen Without a Crown. It has not been used in decades. Where is it? The theater storage vault. Which survived the fire? Probably. We go tomorrow. No. His eyes narrowed. No? You were shot today. I have been shot before. That is not persuasive. Vittorio is searching for the ledger. And your men can secure the theater while you recover. I will not send you inside without me. You will not send me anywhere. His jaw tightened. She stood. Tomorrow, I decide whether I return to San Celeste. You decide whether you are physically capable of joining me. And if I decide you are not going, then you will prove my mother correct. The words hit him harder than anger. Isabella walked toward the door. Isabella. She stopped. His voice was lower now. Not a command. What? When the shot came from the harbor, I thought it had hit you. She turned. Matteo remained seated on the edge of the bed, powerful even while wounded, but something unguarded had entered his face. I have known you 4 days, he said. That should not have felt the way it did. Her heartbeat slowed. What did it feel like? He looked at her for a long time. Like every decision I made before you had become irrelevant. Neither moved. The space between them filled with everything he had not confessed. Isabella crossed the room before she could lose courage. She stopped between his knees. Matteo looked up at her. For once, he was not taller. Not above her. Not controlling the room. Her hand lifted toward his face. She hesitated an inch from his cheek. His eyes darkened. You can touch me, he said. She rested her palm against him. The feared Mafia boss closed his eyes. Only for a second. But the surrender in that second frightened her more than his power ever had. When he opened them, his hand moved to her waist. It settled there without pulling. Waiting. Tell me to stop, he said. You have not done anything. I am thinking about it. Her breath trembled. What are you thinking? His gaze lowered to her mouth. Something reckless. You said you never do reckless things. I said I did not before you. He leaned closer. Their foreheads almost touched. The moment narrowed to breath, warmth, and the careful pressure of his fingers at her waist. Then the bedroom door opened. Lucia entered. She stopped. Oh. Matteo's face became cold enough to freeze the sea. Lucia looked delighted despite her bruises. I can return later. You can return next year, Matteo said. Isabella stepped back quickly. Lucia's smile faded when she saw the letter. You found the key. Yes. Then we have another problem. Matteo Rose. What? Vittorio announced that Bianca will marry another man in 48 hours. Isabella frowned. How is that our problem? The groom is Gabriel. The wedding announcement spread across Sicily by morning. Gabriel Conti, former legal advisor to the Bellini family, would marry Bianca Viscari at Teatro San Celeste in a private ceremony. Matteo read the announcement once, then broke the tablet in his hand. Isabella stared at the cracked screen. I thought you disliked him. I dislike disloyalty more. You believe Gabriel betrayed you? He entered the warehouse before us. He knew the east door was wired. Vittorio's men disappeared when he arrived. He was also attacked. According to Gabriel. Isabella remembered Gabriel's easy smile, his careful warnings, the way he had found the property records so quickly. Why would Bianca marry him? Because the cultural ministry can transfer control of the theater to Vittorio if Bianca's husband establishes a competing inheritance claim. How would Gabriel have a claim? Matteo looked toward Lucia. She answered reluctantly. Gabriel's mother was a Moretti. Isabella felt sick. He is related to me? Distantly, Lucia said. If your claim is invalidated, he becomes the nearest surviving heir. And he never mentioned that. No. The betrayal cut deeper than she expected. Gabriel had appeared to be the only person in Matteo's world who spoke to her without command or suspicion. Perhaps that had been calculated too. A message arrived that afternoon. A single card delivered through the estate gates. Isabella, come to the theater before sunset. Come alone if you want the truth about your mother. G. Matteo read it over her shoulder. You are not going. I am. No. You are becoming repetitive. He may be working with Vittorio. Then I need to know why. You need to remain alive. And you need to understand that my life cannot consist of waiting inside your fortress while men decide which truths I am allowed to hear. His voice hardened. I will not permit it. The room went silent. Isabella looked at him. There it was. The cage her mother had warned about. Matteo saw the change in her face. His anger faded, but the words could not be withdrawn. You will not permit it, she repeated. I chose the wrong words. You chose honest ones. No, I chose frightened ones. The admission stopped her. He stepped closer. I am afraid that Gabriel is leading you into a trap. I am afraid too. That should matter. It does. But courage is not the absence of fear, Matteo. It is deciding fear does not own you. His jaw flexed. What do you want from me? Trust. I trust you. No. You trust my intentions. You do not trust my decisions. He looked away. That was answer enough. Isabella picked up the card. I will go to the theater. You will not go alone. The note says, I do not negotiate with stationery. Despite everything, she almost laughed. Matteo continued. You choose the route. You choose where my men remain. I stay close enough to reach you. Far enough that Gabriel believes you came alone. It was compromise. Difficult, unwilling compromise. But real. Agreed, she said. They entered Teatro San Celeste through the wardrobe loading door shortly before sunset. The fire had damaged the upper balconies, but the main stage remained intact. Plastic-covered rows of seats. Broken glass glittered beneath work lights. The air smelled of smoke, wet velvet, and burned wood. Isabella walked through the costume corridor alone. Matteo remained 2 rooms behind with his men. She felt his presence even when she could not see him. Gabriel waited on stage. No guards. No weapon. Only the old gold curtain behind him and dust moving through shafts of evening light. You came, he said. You are marrying Bianca. Apparently. Is that humor? Despair wearing formal clothing. She stopped several feet away. Are you working with Vittorio? Yes. The direct answer shocked her. For how long? Since I was 19. While serving Matteo? Yes. Why? Because my father owed Vittorio money. When my father died, the debt became mine. You could have told Matteo. And asked him to rescue me? Men like Matteo do not erase debt. They purchase it. You do not know him as well as you think. Gabriel smiled sadly. Neither do you. He reached into his jacket. Isabella stiffened. He removed a small brass key. The storage vault. Her mother's letter had said the key was sewn into the original curtain. How did you find it? Bianca found the curtain before the engagement. Vittorio has been searching the theater for years. Why give it to me? Because the ledger must be opened by the legal heir. Your mother designed the lock. And the wedding? Vittorio intends to declare you responsible for the attack. Once you are arrested, I inherit the theater through my mother's line. After I marry Bianca, ownership transfers into the Viscari family. You agreed? I agreed to survive. Isabella's disappointment hardened. Many people use survival to excuse becoming the danger they once feared. His expression tightened. I did not ask for judgment. No, you asked me into an empty theater after helping destroy my home. I did not know about your apartment. You always say you did not know. Gabriel looked toward the dark auditorium. I can help you reach the ledger before Vittorio. Why? Because once he has it, he no longer needs me alive. A slow clap sounded from the royal box. Vittorio Viscari stepped into the light. Bianca stood beside him. Armed men appeared along the balconies. Gabriel closed his eyes. I am sorry, he whispered. Vittorio smiled. Like his father, Gabriel confuses guilt with morality. Isabella looked toward the wing where Matteo waited. No movement. Vittorio descended the central stairs. You have caused remarkable trouble, Miss Moore. You burned your own daughter's engagement to gain a building. I attempted to remove a rival whose father stole more than a building from me. Matteo did not steal San Celeste. He inherited power. There is little moral distinction. Bianca stepped onto the stage. She wore black now. No pearls. No wedding gown. Her eyes avoided Isabella's. Where is Matteo? Vittorio asked. I came alone. No, you did not. He looked toward the curtains. Matteo Bellini has not allowed you out of his sight since the moment you stepped onto this stage. Silence. Vittorio smiled wider. Come out, Matteo. Or I will ask Bianca to place a bullet in the woman you publicly chose over her. Bianca raised a gun. Her hand trembled. Matteo emerged from the left wing. He wore a black coat over his injured shoulder. His expression was calm enough to terrify everyone who knew him. His men did not appear. Isabella realized why. Vittorio's guards controlled the balconies. Any attack would place her in the center. Matteo stopped beneath the stage lights. Release her. Return the Bellini ports to my control. No. End your investigation into your mother's death. No. Marry Bianca tomorrow. Matteo looked at Bianca. She could not meet his eyes. No. Vittorio's smile faded. You would sacrifice your family's empire for a seamstress? Matteo looked at Isabella. The entire ruined theater seemed to wait with her. No, he said. I would sacrifice it for the woman who reminded me an empire is worthless if everyone inside it must become a prisoner. Isabella's breath caught. Vittorio's expression hardened. You speak of freedom while surrounding her with guards. Matteo did not look away from her. I am learning the difference. Slowly, Isabella said. The corner of his mouth moved. Barely. Vittorio saw it. Rage sharpened his face. Open the storage vault, he ordered Isabella. Bianca gestured with the gun. Gabriel handed Isabella the key. They crossed backstage together, surrounded by Viscari men. The storage vault lay beneath the Western rehearsal room. Inside were hundreds of costumes sealed in cedar cabinets. Isabella found the original curtain rolled inside a wooden case labeled La Regina Senza Corona. A section of embroidery near the lower edge formed a crown with no center stone. She inserted the brass key. A hidden compartment opened. Inside lay a second key made of black iron. Vittorio took it. The archive, he said. They returned beneath the stage. The old music archive remained damaged from the attack, but the flooded floor had drained. Matteo walked beside Isabella with Bianca's gun against his back. At the center of the room stood a circular metal plate. The black key fit into its lock. Vittorio turned it. Nothing happened. He looked at Isabella. Your mother enjoyed complications. Isabella examined the metal plate. Around the lock were 6 narrow grooves, shaped like stitches. She created a combination. Open it. I do not know the pattern. Vittorio caught her by the back of the neck. Matteo moved. 3 guns aimed at him. His face became lethal. Remove your hand. Vittorio tightened his grip. You are in no position to command me. Matteo's voice lowered. If you hurt her, there will be no position on earth where you are safe. The room went quiet. Vittorio released Isabella with a shove. Matteo caught her before she fell. His hands steadied her shoulders. Are you injured? No. His gaze searched her face. Only after believing her did he step away. Isabella looked at the grooves. 6 stitches. She remembered a pattern her mother had taught her as a child. Not a standard seam. A private method of securing hidden pockets inside coats. Left. Center. Right. Right. Left. Center. She pressed the grooves in sequence. The plate unlocked. A compartment rose from the floor. Inside lay a leather ledger wrapped in oilcloth. Vittorio reached for it. Bianca stepped between them. Wait. Her father stared at her. What are you doing? You said the ledger would protect our family. It will. You also said Matteo would not be harmed at the engagement. This is not the time. You said Lucia would be released. Bianca. You said Gabriel volunteered to marry me. Gabriel looked away. Bianca's face changed. For the first time, Isabella did not see an arrogant heiress. She saw a daughter discovering that every promise had been designed to control her. Vittorio reached for the ledger again. Bianca aimed the gun at him. Tell me one true thing. Her father's eyes became cold. You have embarrassed me enough. The cruelty in his voice seemed to finish what doubt had begun. Bianca handed the weapon to Matteo. Vittorio's men raised their guns. Matteo seized Isabella and pulled her behind the stone column as shooting erupted. The archive exploded with sound. Gabriel tackled Bianca to the floor. Matteo fired toward the doorway, moving with frightening precision despite his wounded shoulder. Stay down, he ordered Isabella. She saw Vittorio grab the ledger and disappear into the eastern passage. He has it. Matteo looked toward the corridor, then at Isabella. For 1 second, revenge stood on one side of him and her safety on the other. Years of grief. His mother's murder. The proof he had sacrificed everything to find. He remained with Isabella. The choice was immediate. Vittorio escaped with the ledger. Bellini reinforcements reached the archive minutes later. Matteo's men secured the surviving Viscari guards. Bianca sat against the wall, shaking. Gabriel had been struck across the head but remained conscious. Matteo did not look toward the tunnel where Vittorio had disappeared. His attention stayed on Isabella. You let him go, she said. Yes. He took the evidence against him. Yes. You spent 8 years searching for it. Yes. Why? His expression finally broke. Not dramatically. Matteo Bellini did nothing dramatically when emotion was real. His voice became almost rough. Because I knew where you were. She stared at him. I could recover a ledger, he said. I could not recover you. The words entered every wounded place inside her. She stepped closer. You do not own me. No. You cannot lock me inside your estate. No. You cannot decide my life because you fear losing me. His throat moved. No. She placed her hand over his heart. It beat hard beneath her palm. But you can stand beside me while I decide. Matteo covered her hand with his. Isabella. The way he said her name contained everything he still feared speaking aloud. She rose onto her toes and kissed him. For 1 heartbeat, he did not move. The feared man stood perfectly still, as though tenderness had struck him more violently than any bullet. Then his hand came to the back of her neck. The kiss deepened, not rushed, not soft. Controlled hunger finally given permission. The archive, the smoke, the armed men, and the ruined empire disappeared. Matteo kissed her like a man who had denied himself every human need until one woman made denial impossible. When they separated, his forehead rested against hers. "This changes nothing," Isabella whispered. "It changes everything. You still have to learn." "I will. I will not make it easy. I know. I am still angry about the surveillance. I know. And the clothing. I will burn it. The clothing is comfortable. Then I will not burn it." She almost laughed. His thumb traced the edge of her jaw. Behind them, Gabriel groaned. "Perhaps," he said weakly, "we could complete the emotional transformation after leaving the room filled with armed traitors." Matteo looked over Isabella's shoulder. "I continue to dislike him. He saved Bianca. That is his only current defense." Vittorio released the ledger publicly the next morning. Not the original pages. Altered copies. Documents claiming Matteo's father had ordered the death of Sofia Bellini after discovering she intended to abandon the family. Other pages accused Isabella's mother of laundering money through the theater and stealing from both the Bellinis and Vescaris. News networks published the documents before sunrise. By noon, government investigators froze the Bellini Cultural Foundation's assets and closed Teatro San Celeste. Crowds gathered outside the theater. Some demanded Matteo's arrest. Others called Isabella a criminal heir. Vittorio announced he would appear at San Celeste that evening to present the original ledger to a parliamentary committee and expose generations of Bellini corruption. "It is a performance," Isabella said. She stood inside the Bellini library, surrounded by newspapers. Matteo had not slept. "He wants an audience," she continued. "He wants to control how the truth is revealed." "He will bring the real ledger," Lucia said. "He needs the committee to authenticate it." Gabriel sat nearby with a bandage around his head. "He will also bring every remaining Vescari captain." If Matteo enters the theater, Vittorio will present it as an attempted coup. Matteo looked at Isabella. "You are leaving Sicily." "No." "A plane is ready." "No." "Vittorio will target you again. He is presenting evidence about my mother inside my theater." "Your claim is frozen." "It is still my theater." Matteo's jaw tightened. She stepped toward him. "This is the moment my mother ran from. She ran to protect you. And now I am choosing not to run. I cannot protect you inside that building. You protected me by giving up the ledger. I chose you. Then choose to trust me." The room became still. Matteo looked at her, as though she were asking him to remove his own armor. Perhaps she was. "What is your plan?" he asked. Isabella unfolded the original piece of Bianca's gown lining. The map did not only show an assassination route. Lucia used the old costume symbols. Lucia came closer. "I copied what was in our mother's letters. The 7 lines are not tunnels," Isabella said. "They are rigging cables." Gabriel frowned. "For the stage?" "Yes." San Celeste's original curtain system connects the stage, royal box, rehearsal hall, and archive through mechanical lifts. My mother hid the ledger beneath the stage because she knew the entire building could become a machine. Matteo studied the fabric. "What can the machine do?" Isabella looked at him. "Turn Vittorio's performance into mine." That evening, Teatro San Celeste reopened beneath armed government supervision. The fire damage remained visible. Black scars climbed the royal boxes. Cracked mirrors reflected television lights. Rain streaked the tall windows. Vittorio stood on stage before politicians, reporters, investigators, and the surviving leaders of Sicily's criminal families. The leather ledger rested on a table beside him. Bianca sat in the front row under guard. Gabriel sat near the parliamentary committee. Matteo was nowhere visible. At 8 o'clock, Vittorio began speaking. "My family has endured lies, violence, and public humiliation from a man who inherited power without honor." His voice carried through the theater. "Tonight, I will prove that the Bellini dynasty was built not merely on crime, but on the blood of its own women." He opened the ledger. The stage lights went out. A single spotlight appeared high above him. Isabella stood on the suspended costume bridge. She wore a deep red gown. Not Bianca's gown. Her own. She had created it years earlier, from leftover velvet, and never believed she would have a reason to wear it. The dress embraced her full figure, the neckline elegant, the skirt falling in dark waves around her. Every face turned upward. Vittorio stared. "What is this?" Isabella held the original silver-stitched lining. "This is the truth your daughter wore inside her wedding gown." Reporters raised cameras. Government guards moved toward the bridge stairs. The stairs lifted before they reached them. Ancient machinery groaned inside the walls. Isabella pulled the first rigging cord. A screen descended behind Vittorio. Security footage appeared. Bianca threatening Isabella in the costume room. The image had no sound, but it showed Bianca seeing the open lining. It showed her grabbing Isabella's wrist. Vittorio's expression changed. You said the cameras failed. The modern cameras failed, Isabella said. The opera archive used analog rehearsal film. The wardrobe room was recorded for costume documentation. The next footage showed one of Vittorio's men entering the royal box before the attack. Then the Bellini guard leading Lucia beneath the stage. Then Bianca meeting Vittorio in the eastern corridor minutes before the announcement. The audience erupted in whispers. Vittorio closed the ledger. This proves nothing. No, Isabella said. But your own voice does. She pulled the second cord. A recording played through the theater. Vittorio speaking inside the warehouse. You turned a family celebration into an international humiliation. Another recording followed. His voice from the archive. Open the storage vault. Then Bianca's voice. You said Matteo would not be harmed at the engagement. Vittorio looked toward the sound booth. Lucia stood behind the glass. She had recorded every word through a transmitter hidden in Isabella's silver thimble. Vittorio's men began moving. Matteo emerged from the central aisle. He wore a black suit without a tie. Bellini guards appeared along the balconies behind him. The entire theater shifted. Power changed direction without a shot being fired. Vittorio seized the ledger. You believe this ends with applause? No, Isabella said. It ends with ownership. Gabriel stood and addressed the parliamentary committee. Teatro San Celeste legally belongs to Isabella Moore, granddaughter of Elena Moretti. The transfer into the Bellini Foundation was fraudulent. The original deeds have been authenticated. Investigators moved toward Vittorio. He pulled a gun from beneath his coat. The audience screamed. He aimed at Isabella. Matteo ran toward the stage. The shot struck the rigging above her. The costume bridge snapped to one side. Isabella fell. Matteo reached the stage as she crashed through the hanging red curtain. He caught her. The force drove him to his knees. For one suspended moment, the entire opera house saw them beneath the stage lights, Isabella in red velvet, held against Matteo's chest, his body curved protectively around hers. Are you hurt? He demanded. Her breath had vanished, but she managed to shake her head. Vittorio raised the gun again. Bianca stepped between him and Matteo. Enough. Her father stared at her. Move. No. You are my daughter. That is the only reason I know exactly what you are. Vittorio's face twisted. He turned the weapon toward her. Gabriel tackled him. The gun fired into the ceiling. Matteo lowered Isabella carefully to the stage and moved with cold, controlled violence. He reached Vittorio before the older man could stand. One strike disarmed him. Another drove him against the gold table. Matteo seized him by the collar. Years of rage entered his face. My mother called our house twice before you killed her. Vittorio smiled through blood at his lip. And you did not answer. Matteo's hand tightened. The theater waited. Isabella saw the boy he had been, the guilt he had carried, the man Vittorio wanted him to become. Matteo, she said. He heard her. Even through the shouting, even through years of revenge. His head turned. She stood beneath the torn red curtain, one hand gripping her bruised ribs. Do not let him make your final choice for you. Matteo looked back at Vittorio. Then he released him. Government officers seized the older man. Vittorio shouted as they dragged him from the stage. You are weak. She has made you weak. Matteo watched him go. No, he said quietly. She taught me where strength ends. The audience remained frozen. Matteo turned toward the ledger. The book that could restore his political control. Destroy rivals. Protect his empire. He lifted it from the floor. Then walked to Isabella. This belongs to you. She looked at the leather cover. My mother said to watch what you were willing to destroy. Matteo's eyes held hers. What do you want me to destroy? The part of your empire that needs this theater to hide. A murmur moved through the criminal families. Matteo did not hesitate. He turned toward the cameras. As of tonight, the Bellini family relinquishes every financial claim, private contract, and operational interest connected to Teatro San Celeste. His captains stared in disbelief. The theater and all legitimate assets surrounding it will be returned to Isabella Moore. Every illegal account passing through this property will be disclosed to investigators. One of the Bellini elders rose. You will destroy us. Matteo looked at him. Then build something that does not require a seamstress to risk her life before any of you recognize the truth. No one answered. He faced Isabella again. The chandeliers glowed above them. The cameras continued recording. Bianca stood beside Gabriel at the edge of the stage. Lucia watched from the sound booth. Every powerful person in Sicily waited to see whether Matteo Bellini would replace one public bride with another. He did not take Isabella's hand. Not immediately. He stopped in front of her. Then, before the entire opera house, Sicily's most feared mafia boss lowered himself to one knee. Shock moved through the room. His men froze. The Bellini elders stared as though the earth had opened beneath them. Matteo looked up at Isabella. "I once offered you my hand because you were standing alone." His voice carried through the silent theater. "Then I surrounded you because I was afraid the world would take you from me." Isabella's eyes filled with tears. "I confused protection with control. I believed devotion meant preventing every danger, even if I had to make your decisions for you." He opened his empty hand. "No ring, no contract, no claim. Tonight, I am asking for nothing you have not freely chosen." The audience seemed to stop breathing. "I do not ask you to enter my world," he continued. "I ask whether I may remain beside you while you build your own." Isabella looked at the man kneeling before her. Not defeated, not weakened, transformed by the difficulty of surrendering control. She remembered Bianca's wedding gown, her mother's letter, the stage worker beneath the fallen beam, the bullet in Matteo's shoulder, the moment he let Vittorio escape because he knew where she was. "You may stand," she said. Something uncertain crossed his face. She extended her hand. "But only if you understand that beside me does not mean in front of me." Matteo placed his hand in hers. "I understand." She helped him rise. The entire opera house remained silent. Then Lucia began to applaud. Gabriel joined her. One stage worker stood. Then another. Applause spread from the balconies to the orchestra pit, from employees who had spent years unseen to guests who had witnessed a dynasty choose change over possession. Matteo did not look at them. He looked only at Isabella. She touched his face and kissed him beneath the restored spotlight. 4 months later, Teatro San Celeste reopened. The burned balconies had been repaired, though Isabella insisted one blackened section remained visible behind glass. "A reminder," she said, "that restoration did not require pretending damage had never happened." The theater no longer belonged to a foundation controlled by mafia families. It operated through an independent trust supporting artists, stage workers, and young designers who could not afford formal training. Isabella became creative director. She still sewed. She refused to surrender the work that had taught her how hidden structures held beautiful things together. On opening night, she stood backstage adjusting the sleeve of a nervous soprano. "You are shaking," Isabella said. "So is everyone. That is why costumes have strong seams." The young woman smiled. Music began beyond the curtain. Isabella walked toward the stage door. Matteo waited on the other side of the glass. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit. 2 Bellini guards stood at the far end of the corridor, distant enough to offer privacy. He did not enter. He had arrived 20 minutes earlier and remained outside because Isabella had not yet invited him backstage. Learning to ask had not made him less dangerous. It had made every act of restraint more meaningful. Isabella pressed the release button. The door opened. Matteo stepped inside. His gaze moved over her deep red dress, the same color she had worn the night he knelt before Sicily. "You are staring," she said. "Yes. Your honesty remains alarming." "You look beautiful." "I looked beautiful in my work dress too." "You did." She raised an eyebrow. "I noticed you before the engagement," he admitted. "How long before?" 8 months. She stared at him. "That information should have been disclosed earlier. I was advised against it." "By whom?" "Everyone." She tried to remain stern. Failed. He came closer but stopped before touching her. "May I?" The question remained simple, powerful. She turned her palm upward. Matteo took her hand. Beyond the curtains, the orchestra reached the opening movement of La Regina Senza Corona, the Queen Without a Crown. The opera told the story of a woman offered a kingdom by a man who believed love meant ownership. In the final act, he gave up the crown and asked to share the road instead. Isabella had rewritten the ending. The original queen disappeared alone. Her version remained not because she needed the king, but because he had learned how to love a woman without building walls around her. Matteo looked toward the stage. "Nervous?" "No, that is a lie. I am allowed small ones on opening night." He lifted her hand and pressed his lips gently against her fingers. No photographers waited. No powerful families watched. This gesture belonged only to them. "What happens after the performance?" he asked. "I inspect the costume changes. After that, I speak with the donors. And after that?" She smiled. "You wait." His eyes darkened with restrained amusement. "I have become exceptionally skilled at waiting. You have become adequate." I will continue practicing. The stage manager called Isabella's name. She began to move away. Matteo did not tighten his grip. He let her hand slide freely from his. She took 3 steps, then turned back. He remained where she had left him. A powerful man waiting without assuming she would return. Isabella crossed the distance again. She placed both hands against his chest and kissed him. His arms came around her only after she leaned closer. When they separated, his forehead rested against hers. "What was that for?" he asked. "For learning. I have more to learn." "Yes. Will you remain while I do?" She looked through the open curtain at the restored theater. At the workers moving confidently through corridors once controlled by fear. At Lucia taking her seat in the royal box, no longer trapped by family expectations. At Bianca entering quietly beside Gabriel, not as a bride or bargaining piece, but as a witness preparing to testify against her father. At the blackened section of balcony preserved behind glass. At the stage where a seamstress had once been told she did not belong. Then Isabella looked at Matteo, the man who had chosen her before, understanding what that choice would cost. The man who had nearly turned protection into another prison. The man who had burned the architecture of his own power, rather than ask her to become smaller inside it. "I am not remaining because you need me," she said. "I know. I am remaining because I choose you." For the first time since she had met him, Matteo Bellini's composure disappeared completely. Emotion crossed his face without restraint. Relief, devotion, and the quiet fear of a man receiving something he could never force, purchase, or command. Her love, freely given. He touched her cheek, not as a mafia boss claiming what belonged to him, as a man still amazed that she had allowed him close enough to try. The curtain began to rise. Golden light filled the corridor. Isabella took Matteo's hand. Together, they walked toward it.